You cannot kill anomalies either. Otherwise, you will eventually be killed by anomalies. Now please tell me, did you and your friend see an eyeball? What eyeball? I don't know. We just played a game and survived. But before answering your questions, I need to get the answers I want first. Akiji gave a slight smile. This young man certainly knows how to assess the situation. Even in an unfavorable situation, he still managed to negotiate for himself. However, it's clear that he lacks sufficient experience. So she crossed her legs and said, "What do you want to know?" Little did Akiji know. The once feared Higanbana girl. It was this very boy before them who created it. I want to know what abilities will emerge after reaching spiritual power 3rd tier, which is also one of the answers Moto Shinji seeks. Akiji adjusted his glasses and said, after reaching spiritual power 3rd tier, no further abilities will emerge. Continuing to increase spiritual power will only expand the range of spiritual pressure. Raising spiritual pressure alone cannot directly kill anomalies, but to survive in the face of anomalies, one must still enhance their spiritual power. It's a vicious cycle. But if you're asking me how to deal with anomalies, I'd like to ask how you managed to survive instead. Moto Shinji naturally knew what she wanted to ask. It wouldn't hurt to reveal a bit of his abilities appropriately. I died twice playing that game, but it helped me figure out the game's rules. If you're asking how I revived, it's related to my abilities. Can we get back to the topic of dealing with anomalies? Once again, these words reshape their understanding of the youth. Could it be that he possesses the same ability to cheat death as Red Melody? It's truly enviable. Akiji stood up. She slowly walked over to Moto Shinji's side. Then she sat down and said, "Our Department of Special Affairs possesses special items to deal with anomalies. Each use consumes soul power, which is why we need to enhance our spiritual power to strengthen our souls." And just as she attempted to see through Moto Shinji's abilities with true sight, Moto Shinji swiftly dodged, and the comical scene left Akiji quite frustrated. Moto Shinji took a sip of tea. It seems they are the ones who restricted Little Eyes and AI-chan's abilities. Since you cannot eliminate anomalies, won't they just keep increasing? Eventually, humanity will be wiped out by anomalies. Red Melody jumped up and retorted, "We are, after all, the Department of Special Affairs, and naturally possess anomalies capable of eliminating other anomalies." Moto Shinji keenly caught on to this point. He couldn't help but give a slight smile. He had finally managed to extract the answer. "I've learned everything I wanted to know. Now I'll give you that information about the game." Then he pulled out a piece of paper. He slapped it on the table. "This game is called, It's Your Turn." But just then the knocking on the door sounded once more. I personally created the urban legend, but I have also become a frequent visitor between life and death. And just as I was explaining the rules of It's Your Turn to the Department of Special Affairs, an unexpected guest showed up at home. Wasn't this guy our neighbor Xiaosong? "Hello, little neighbor. I don't have scissors at home, could you lend me yours?" This guy really is a social butterfly. There's a convenience store right downstairs. Who would ask a stranger neighbor for a favor? And there's something really off about this guy's aura. Could he be one of the anomalies himself? "I can lend it to you. Wait a moment." So I turned and walked into the house. Akiji seemed to notice something too, looking over this way. But under true sight, she still found nothing. Moto Shinji secretly observed this scene. The people from the Department of Special Affairs didn't notice anything amiss either, so he picked up the scissors. As he turned and walked toward the door, he wondered to himself, could it be that I was mistaken? He handed over the scissors and said, "Here are the scissors. No rush to return them." Watching the man accept the scissors with an innocent and harmless expression, Moto Shinji became even more convinced of his inner thoughts. This person might be stronger than anyone present. And after closing the door, Moto Shinji returned to the tea table. That person was the newly moved-in neighbor, quite outgoing. "Sorry to keep you waiting. Let's continue our previous topic." Seeing that everyone remained unresponsive, Moto Shinji's heart grew heavier. He took the paper handed over by Qi Xiaoyin. He then wrote down the rules of anomalies. "It's your turn." And he didn't hide anything. Aside from AI-chan and Little Eyes, he wrote everything down. After all, with the internet, it wouldn't be difficult for them to look up the rules of that game. After finishing writing, he handed it back again. The three immediately crowded together, all eager to take a look at the rules of anomalies, as they never tired of investigating them. Red Melody snatched it away with a chuckle, saying, "Hee hee, such an unsolvable anomaly can only be investigated by an outstanding overseer like me." Akiji said with a serious expression, "Moto Shinji, would you like to join the Department of Special Affairs? What benefits would I get by joining you?" By joining us, you will immediately receive a massive sum of 50 million tax-free, along with a car and a house, giving you the freedom of mobility and housing. Whatever material needs you have, the Department of Special Affairs will fulfill them, and even your spiritual needs can be met. Moto Shinji, however, didn't care about the wealth. With the massive compensation left by his parents, he had more than enough to squander. Still, he asked, then what are the responsibilities? Personnel of the Department of Special Affairs are required to follow a shift rotation system and bear unshirkable responsibility when investigating incidents involving anomalies. Anomalies are highly dangerous, with a significant probability of fatality. This is also why they possess power and wealth. Of course, the Department of Special Affairs also has access to special items for use. However, from what I know, in the 10 years of investigating anomalies, except for Kong Ping, the head of the investigations department, no one survived. So we won't force you to join, the choice is yours. So I have other options then? Red Melody said flatteringly. Of course you have another option. For instance, you could start your own club and cooperate with the Department of Special Affairs in their investigations when necessary. You just won't get any benefits. Or why not join us? There's a commission for bringing in new members, and we could split it 50-50. Chi Xiaoyin added timidly. You could also join someone else's club. Red Melody immediately got a headache. Shut the hell up, you. You just can't stop running your mouth, can you? Don't you know that cutting off someone's livelihood is like killing their parents? Akiji, however, extended his right hand. In short, humanity's enemy is the anomalies, not humans themselves. In the face of anomalies, human scheming and infighting are utterly ridiculous. What is your choice? Moto Shinji smiled and said, You're right. Although anomalies are terrifying, the human heart is equally complex. So he took the initiative to shake Akiji's right hand. I want to start my own club and I'll name it the Ghost Club. After all, this name carries the memories of my friend's past. And after the others had left, Moto Shinji then revealed the little eyes in his hand. He had temporarily embedded the little eyes into his palm earlier, just to guard against a sudden attack by the Department of Special Affairs. Fortunately, they didn't pick on me. But it must be said, after gaining the little eyes ability, my perception has improved significantly. Although I can't kill anomalies yet, I'm getting close. I must investigate this neighbor, Xiaosong, thoroughly. So he summoned Little Eyes and Ai-chan once again. Let's take a walk around the neighborhood. I'm really curious about this new neighbor. I'm curious about the danger that White, the prophetess, mentioned. How dangerous could it possibly be? Meanwhile, in a classroom at River City High School, White seemed restless, because she hadn't seen Moto Shinji in the morning. After all, in her dictionary, wherever Moto Shinji was, that was the safest place. Even the leave request from Moto Shinji was something she sneaked into the academic affairs office to see. Highly tense, she was suddenly startled by the vibration of her phone. She pulled out her phone and looked at it. It turned out to be a message from her mother. The neighbor's child gave her a gift. It was a beautiful doll. Given that, she had no choice but to go and return the favor first. At White's home. Old Qian, have you noticed that our daughter has become much more cheerful lately? Could it be that she's made new friends? Old Qian placed the doll by the windowsill and said, It's a good thing that little White has become more optimistic. She used to be so quiet all the time. It's much better now. Who could blame them? Our daughter is a bit different after all. And as they turned and walked out of the room, as the door closed, the light gradually narrowed, focusing on the kimono-clad doll. Just as the light was about to vanish completely, the doll's eyeballs seemed to move. Urban Legends Chronicles' latest chapter begins. I have integrated the abilities of Little Eyes, and I dealt a critical hit of 999. However, a man-eating ghost suddenly appeared in the mall. Moto Shinji's top disciple is in danger. White received a gift from the neighbor's little sister. It was a creepy doll. To return the favor, she went to the mall. She also unexpectedly spotted Kisame and Deidara working part-time, but she didn't approach them to say hello, because she was captivated by a Hello Kitty and a little bunny. And when the clock struck exactly 6 o'clock, a familiar melody began to spread. White turned around in surprise. She discovered that the melodious singing was coming from the clock tower. It said that this shopping mall used to be a foundling hospital. Every day at 6 o'clock, this folk song is played on time, with the purpose of comforting these abandoned infants and preventing them from causing disturbances. Listening to the discussions of the crowd, White felt a sudden palpitation and his breathing became rapid. This unsettling feeling made her unbearably suffocated. Her sixth sense urged her to find a place to start the prophecy. While the others remained indifferent, looking as if it were nothing out of the ordinary, those promoting products continued their sales pitches. White dashed into the evacuation passageway. Taking a deep breath, she flicked the prophetic coin into the air. The destiny coin spun ceaselessly in the air, accompanied by a strange melody. The spider pattern reappeared. Yet White made no move to catch the falling coin. She let the coin fall to the ground, producing a crisp sound. The eerie music made White tremble with fear. The unknown fear spread throughout her body, making her soul shudder. Then she was startled awake by two voices. In front of her stood two people, both emitting faint fluctuations of spiritual power. They seemed to be discussing stories about the mall's ghost. The prophecy told White that these two were in danger. So she quietly crouched down. She reached out to pick up the coin on the ground. She had just grasped it tightly, but she was suddenly pulled back by a small hand. While she was taken by surprise, her gaze followed her right hand. It turned out to be a child outlined by countless black lines with glowing blue eyes. "Sister, it's so hot here. Can you take me out?" While startled, White flung her right hand away. While shouting danger, she ran towards the two people in front of her. Suddenly, an upside-down human head pressed close to her face, asking, "Have you seen my child?" Such a horrifying scene appeared before her eyes. If it weren't for White's composure, even diapers wouldn't be able to contain the dramatic ups and downs of life. Yet, the next second, two heads flew up right before White's eyes. What would the esteemed viewers think if they saw this scene? White quickly realized the issue. These images before her must be illusions. Those two were spiritualists. It was impossible for them not to sense a ghost approaching so closely. But the red-dressed female ghost was real, and she had to stay away from it. So she turned around swiftly. She dashed off in another direction. In the panic, her glasses also fell to the ground. As expected, the women's restroom became her destination. In the silence of the restroom, only the sound of dripping water could be heard. Without her glasses, White's vision was blurred, leaving her to huddle in a corner, trembling with fear. Suddenly, the sound of banging on the door echoed. The female ghost in red had caught up and was now peering inside, searching for White. Strands of hair surged toward her. It lifted her from the ground while stimulating the nerves beneath her eyes. It forced her to open her eyes. She inched her way toward the pool. The heavy sense of oppression continuously gnawed at White's nerves. Through the mirror she could clearly see the top of her head, where human faces hung one after another, emitting eerie, cackling sounds from their mouths. Anyone looking into a mirror and seeing such a sight would surely shudder. Just as Ghost was about to take White's head, a pair of blood-red eyes lit up in the darkness. At the same time, a crimson light pierced through the bathroom door. Before the long-haired ghost could react, its head was blown apart by the crimson light. White gradually regained consciousness, and the door that had been pierced through collapsed at that moment. "White, you've been quite hard to find. Is this the danger you were talking about? Doesn't seem like much. Couldn't even handle one hit." Surviving the ordeal, White instantly switched to pitiful mode, her delicate and touching appearance truly evoking sympathy. But in the next second, the tone suddenly shifted. "Boss, you finally made it. I was almost scared out of my wits. Hey you. Stop right there. Don't even think about wiping your snot on me." Then he pulled out the glasses that White had left behind from his pocket. He enveloped the broken glasses with spiritual power, and they slowly returned to their original state. This skill, obtained after merging with Little Eyes, is called Rift Restoration, capable of restoring damaged items. After fixing them, he handed them over and said, "Take care of your glasses. Don't be so careless. Don't thank me just yet. I still have a lot of questions to ask you." At that very moment, two figures appeared before them. The visitor spoke timidly. "Hello, may I ask if you are Lord Overseer? We are members of the Sweeper team, specifically responsible for guiding and cleansing vengeful spirits. You found me so quickly." The thrilling plot of Urban Legends Chronicles continues. I create anomalies to punish the world's evils. Yet I cannot save the hearts enslaved by capital. To reap the chives. They didn't even spare the children. So you're saying the original site of this shopping mall was actually a place specifically for disposing of the bodies of children from the nursery? Yes, the wealthy developers covered up the truth to develop the area, turning it into a shopping mall. Although business is booming, it has also caused the lingering spirits to harbor immense resentment. That's why frequent disappearances occur here. Some shop owners hear children crying after 6 p.m. Some even catch glimpses of a woman in red. Yet, the owner here, knowing the truth, is unwilling to give up the business. After they invited a Taoist priest to perform a ritual. In the end, they resorted to using folk songs to appease the restless spirits. But the missing person was also harmed by the vengeful spirits, and then their soul became trapped here, thus turning into a new vengeful spirit. White said indignantly. I heard that music, but then it became very strange. In a daze, I lost consciousness. Moto Shinji, however, suspected that there might be more powerful anomalies present here. Unable to find an explanation, he didn't delve deeper into it. He glanced at the object in the sweeper member's hand and couldn't help but feel a bit curious. Lord Overseer, this device is called a spiritual pressure generator. It uses soul orbs as its energy source and can simulate third-tier soul pressure to combat vengeful spirits. Moto Shinji was somewhat surprised and asked, "What is a soul orb?" So I reached into my pocket and rummaged around. I pulled out something that looked like a marble. Is this what you're talking about? Hold it steady. This thing is quite valuable. It can not only be used for cultivation but also works against vengeful spirits. Moto Shinji squeezed hard and realized he couldn't absorb it. He couldn't help but glance at White, thinking about finding a chance to have this girl try it. With that mischievous look in his eyes, it definitely couldn't be anything good, right? After making up his mind, Moto Shinji bid farewell to the two sweeper members. White followed quietly behind without saying a word. The two left behind whispered, "This overseer is so handsome. Is she his girlfriend?" Judging by their burning curiosity, they must be imagining a drama series of at least 50 episodes. Yet Moto Shinji, ignoring the beautiful women, fell into deep thought. The reserves of the Department of Special Affairs need to rely on soul orbs to suppress the vengeful spirit Akiji. Although they possess spiritual power, they still require rule-based items to restrain anomalies. And now that I've advanced to the third-tier soul, I should be considered one of the top performers, right? But at that moment, White interrupted his train of thought. President, since this is the birthplace of the vengeful spirits, should we? I know what you're thinking. You believe we should completely resolve the vengeful spirits here, right? Isn't that the right thing to do? I'm not saying it's wrong. But this isn't the optimal method. Can you guarantee that capitalists won't develop new shopping malls? In fact, most of these vengeful spirits were abandoned infants from the past. The vast majority of them were abandoned by their biological parents, while only a small fraction were given up due to the inability to provide for them. It was an era where survival was a brutal struggle, and such abandoned infants had virtually no chance of living. It is only natural for them to harbor resentment. The little boy you encountered earlier was burned to death in his past life, labeled as ominous due to a physical defect. Such feudalistic beliefs have harmed generation after generation. However, there is no principle that holds the descendants accountable for the crimes of their ancestors. The vengeful spirits harming innocent people is, without a doubt, an unforgivable sin. Now, with the compromise offered by the mall on one hand, the vengeful spirits can find redemption through this folk song, and on the other hand, the lives of innocent people are also protected. Let it become an urban legend, something that people both fear and respect, while also serving as a reminder to revere life. If I hadn't come this time, you might have really died. For someone with spiritual power, you are still too weak. However, vengeful spirits may distort people's judgment of danger, which is why you keep heading toward perilous places. Then Moto Shinji launched into a 10,000-word explanation about White being a weakling, speaking with such biting sarcasm that it seemed utterly worthless, like glass beads clattering down one after another. However, simple-hearted girls are easily content. After Moto Shinji agreed to go shopping with her, White has really been tamed, the kind who doesn't hold grudges at all. So, after the two finished shopping at the mall, they found a restaurant. At this moment, a gentle breeze blew, and the water remained calm. White said with a serious expression, "Take out your hand." So the two of them aligned their arms parallel, and in the next moment, little White released his tightly clenched palm. A coin traced an arc through their line of sight. It landed precisely in Moto Shinji's hand. This is the tool you use for your ability. Judging by your notes, it must be the power of prophecy. He looked at the front of the coin, which depicted a six-armed angel holding a spindle and a pair of scissors. Yes, you can call it the Destiny coin. Urban Legends Chronicles continued. The author of this comic. Delayed again and again. I've waited so long to finally continue editing this video. You, the audience, have also been waiting for a long time. Following the conclusion of the mall ghost incident, Moto Shinji launched a seminar on the abilities of White. No one could have ever imagined that. This seemingly fragile and delicate girl. In reality, she is the agent of the goddess of destiny. President, this destiny coin is the manifestation of my ability, If it lands heads up after being tossed, it proves that events are on the right track of time and is considered a success. The cost is the loss of memories for a certain number of days. So that's why you keep a diary. You trust me so much. Aren't you afraid I might kill you and take the coin for myself? White quickly waved his hands in denial. No way. The coin told me that staying by your side is the safest option. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come looking for you. Moto Shinji thought to himself. A prophetic ability? That could actually help clear up some of the doubts in my mind. Let's see how accurate it is first. So he continued, use it now and let me see. Just ask what my true identity is. White's CPU was instantly baffled. Isn't he the president? But she obediently raised the coin anyway. The next moment the coin spun through the air. It was caught steadily by White as it fell. It opened to reveal the side with the spider pattern. This was the front. In contrast, White closed her eyes with deep guilt and replied, I'm sorry, President, but the coin cannot give me an answer to this question. What does it mean? Why can't she get an answer even with heads? Because in this timeline, the answer has reached the maximum limit of memory consumption days. The difficulty of the questions I ask depends on the number of days of memory consumed, and this has already exceeded 30 days, which is why an answer cannot be obtained. Moto Shinji gave a faint smile. It seems this ability isn't too overpowered after all. Then let me ask a new question. What items are in my home? And when White activated his ability again, the coin actually gave an answer. She looked at Moto Shinji with a childlike expression, as if there was something very dangerous in the president's home. Moto Shinji was not surprised at all. He stood up and said, I understand. You may leave the company. The prophecies within your usable memory range are of little use, unless you can prove you have stronger abilities. Suddenly, one of his arms was grabbed. Actually, I have another ability. It turns out that White's coin possesses another ability. To consume memories measured in years in order to temporarily alter a person's fate, whether it be life or death. Moto Shinji became somewhat interested in this answer. So, it seems there are actually 3 abilities related to this coin, each corresponding to the sun, moon, and year, with each controlling a different power, right? So, can you explain what the ability that consumes a month's worth of memories is? Realizing he'd been tricked, White finally came to his senses. So, President, you've been trying to get information out of me all along. Otherwise, would you have said it? Who told you to trust me so much? Your behavior is hardly that of a person with normal intelligence, so naive. Under this verbal assault, White felt as if he was about to fall apart. However, if this ability touches upon your principles, you don't have to say. As compensation, help me ask one more question. Help me ask if there are any anomalies in Minghu apartments that pose a threat to me. Yet, what I received was still a wall of silence with no answers. It seems there is indeed something wrong with the person in the apartment. Since you're so naive and sweet, I'll give you a gift. With that, he handed over a soul orb. This thing is of no use to me anymore. You can use it to enhance your soul power. Consider it compensation for forcing you to use the coin earlier. Remember to come to the club activity tomorrow. And then came the awkward moment. White immediately bowed at a 90-degree angle and shouted loudly, Thank you, club president. Please guide me more in the future. The surrounding onlookers murmured, Is that kid's brain okay? What kind of Chinibu thing is he doing now? Moto Shinji never expected that he, too, would experience a day of social death. He'd better hurry and escape this place of trouble. In the blink of an eye, he arrived at Minghu Apartments. Shortly after Moto Shinji got home, he heard a knock at the door. So he stood up and turned the doorknob. It's your neighbor Xiaosong again. Hello, my rice washing pot is broken. Can I borrow yours? Moto Shinji, who already had reservations about this person, naturally didn't want to lend him anything again. So he refused outright, saying, Sorry, I'm using it myself and I have kids at home waiting to eat, so I can't lend it to you. Xiaosong, who had been smiling innocently just moments before. His smile froze instantly, then recovered the next moment as he hunched over and headed towards his home. Moto Shinji watched intently through the crack in the door, trying to discern something from him. Until he closed the door, and eerily Xiaosong's shadow seemed to split, growing very long. If Moto Shinji had come over to sneak a peek, he would have discovered that Xiaosong, who had been hunched over earlier, now had an indescribably wide-open mouth and was muttering, Thank you, I've borrowed it. I have become the creator of urban anomalies. Yet I still fell in the bloodbath of the anomalies invasion. The neighbor Xiaosong, who appears harmless on the outside. However, he is actually a terrifying and vicious creature that has devoured countless people. Just last night, Moto Shinji refused to lend his rice washing pot to his neighbor Xiaosong, and personally saw him off. But what he never expected was that when he returned to his kitchen, murmuring about making a bowl of noodles for Little Eyes, he was startled to discover the rice-washing pot that had been on the counter had mysteriously vanished. This scene forced him to snap to attention, while also puzzling over the other party's ability to forcibly borrow items. As he stood there stunned, a doorbell chime sounded from behind him. Moto Shinji was instantly alert, sharply turning his head to look. At the same time, the voice of his neighbor Xiaosong came through. "Sir Moto, it's me, Xiaosong. What's up with this guy? Didn't he just leave?" Having experienced the baptism of death, Moto Shinji always wore a bitter and deeply resentful expression when facing unfamiliar anomalies. His right hand, fused with the power of Little Eyes, spread open, ready to guard against any sudden attacks from the anomalies. And he slowly turned the handle, remaining highly vigilant throughout the process, until he caught a glimpse of Xiaosong's figure through the crack. The other person was indeed holding his own rice-washing pot, wearing a cautious smile. Moto Shinji then opened the door. "So it really is you," he said. The other person gratefully replied, "Thank you, Sir Moto, for lending me your pot. I truly appreciate it." With that, he handed over the pot. Then he turned and walked away without looking back, leaving a bewildered Moto Shinji standing there in a daze. Is this a provocation or a warning? Even if you refuse the other party's request to borrow something, they can still forcibly take it and then return it. So, what are the rules of this, and when did I start falling into its rules? Besides, during this period, how many people in the entire apartment building have fallen under its rules? I'm afraid many will die. Moto Shinji placed the pot in his hand on the table. He summoned the record and intended to study this neighbor's abilities. At first, the new neighbor went door to door giving out local specialties. The products themselves were fine. The only issue was his excessive insistence that everyone accept his gifts. In the following days around the apartment, he was frequently seen borrowing various items, knives, pots, and so on. Now, the phenomenon of forcibly borrowing pots is happening right before our eyes. So, how did he manage to do it, and what was his purpose? He wrote his suspicions on paper, but without sufficient evidence, he couldn't make a judgment. At that very moment, Little Eyes raised its tiny hand and pointed behind Moto Shinji. Under the soul's gaze, Xiaosong's figure halted in front of another resident. To further understand the rules of anomalies, Moto Shinji activated Little Eyes' peering ability. Then dense black fluid gathered at the peephole outside the door, forming into an eyeball. Where the gaze fell, it was at Ms. Tian's doorstep. The two were chatting quite happily. This originally normal scene. But in Moto Shinji's eyes, it appeared utterly fake. In his perception, Ms. Tian was someone exceptionally cautious by nature. She wouldn't easily speak even with acquaintances, let alone this newly moved-in neighbor. From this perspective, anyone who has accepted gifts from this person would inadvertently fall under its mental control, developing thoughts that make it impossible to refuse its requests, thereby being drawn into its rules. Imagine how terrifying it would be to subconsciously alter someone's habits, making them feel it's completely natural. Under the watch of the all-seeing eye, Xiaosong, having borrowed the rice-washing pot, continued walking with a hunched back. Suddenly, he halted his steps and sharply turned his head toward the door of Moto Shinji's room. This scene even made the usually bold and meticulous Moto Shinji look horrified, feeling as if he had been completely seen through by that gaze. And under the gaze, the other's figure slowly moved away again. Moto Shinji couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He patted Little Eyes on the head and said, "I might have to take a risk. If I can't fully understand the other party's rules and intentions, I'll always be at a disadvantage. Your mom's good boy. You'll help me, won't you?" Little Eyes had barely finished speaking. Just then, Little Eyes leaped onto the table, escaping from Moto Shinji's grasp. With a flick of his small hand, the remote let out a beep, and the next moment Maka Paka came into view. "Don't worry, Iggle Pickle, everything will be fine, Upsy Daisy." "Ah shoot. Seems this little one is completely unreliable." Moto Shinji quietly opened the door a crack, peeking through the gap just in time to see Xiaosong walking back. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning streaked across the night sky. Outlining the other's silhouette, Moto Shinji seized the opportunity before him and immediately activated the Little Eyes skill, unleashing spiritual power. He dashed toward his neighbor Xiaosong's room, and in the next moment, a sinister evil grinning face appeared before him, saying, "You're here." This scene dealt a heavy blow to Moto Shinji's soul. His body froze uncontrollably in place, as vine-like tendrils coiled around him. They bound him tightly, and with a series of cracking sounds, his arms were torn off and devoured. The excruciating pain from his body gradually blurred Moto Shinji's consciousness, leaving him only vaguely aware of. As the anomaly named Shaosong slowly approached, in the final moment when the necklace's glow faded, he felt as if being eaten. What is happening? I create anomalies within the city. I create Ai-chan, the spirit who holds power over life and death. Yet, I couldn't save her from the fate of heading towards death as a bolt of thunder struck. An eye abruptly opens. The next moment, Moto Shinji abruptly sat up, his terrified expression appearing somewhat horrifying. The sound of his heavy, gasping breaths rose and fell one after another, clearly revealing his suppressed emotions. He had come back to life again. He had the notebook revival bug as his safety net. Moto Shinji is very difficult to kill completely, even if his body is being consumed. But as long as there is still lifespan recorded for him in the notebook, he can be fully resurrected. He looked down at his tightly closed right hand. Moto Shinji didn't even get a chance to fight back before he was killed. This anomaly is like a ticking time bomb. We still don't understand its rules for killing. If this continues, everyone could become its prey. Just then, a small hand reached out and grabbed his arm. The trembling little eyes clung to Moto Shinji, looking utterly terrified. So Moto Shinji picked it up from the ground. What's wrong, little eyes? Starting to care about me now? I'm fine. But little eyes suddenly leaned on his shoulder. Ai-chan is missing. Moto Shinji comforted her while feeling puzzled. It can't be. If Ai-chan had disappeared, why didn't I sense anything at all? So he hurriedly summoned the notebook from his necklace. He intended to check Ai-chan's recent activity trail. And when the pages turned to the one about the Higanbana girl, but suddenly tore a corner of it. The next moment the notebook reacted violently. A page flew out, declaring the death of the Higanbana girl. Looking at the familiar figure on it, she had passed away so tragically. It felt like a thorn piercing Moto Shinji's heart. Department of Special Affairs, you've really done it now. You'll regret this. Just one day earlier, the River City Department of Special Affairs top think tank had approved the proposal to eliminate the Higanbana girl. Despite some opposition to implementing the Devour plan and concerns that the anomaly's god would grow stronger, yet the vast majority of members chose to remain silent, unaware that this decision would lead to their devastating downfall in the future. Ultimately, Kong Ping, the head of the Department of Special Affairs, was appointed as the executor of the Devour plan and immediately dispatched to the Sacred Mountain to initiate the operation. Approaching midnight, a car was traveling along the road. Beyond the area illuminated by the headlights, the surroundings were pitch black. Kong Ping was sitting in the back seat. He was carefully examining a file in his hand, a document about God, which contained its anomalies, rules, methods to avoid death, and more. Until the sound of brakes screeched, and the vehicle came to a steady halt. We've arrived at Mount God. That was a semicircular building constructed at the foot of the mountain, shimmering with a silvery white glow under the moonlight. I am Kong Ping, head of the River City Department of Special Affairs, and the executor of the Devour plan. The scene then shifts to the interior of the building, where there is a security checkpoint with continuous blue light beams connected. Kong Ping casually walked through the beams, and a system prompt sounded. Ding, genetic scan passed. Your identity is Devour Plan Supervisory Agent. Welcome. Inside the Divine Mountain Base, Kong Ping began gathering personnel and issued the highest directive. He went alone to the monitoring room. And in the monitoring room a young man was tied up. At that moment he was holding a mobile phone, and his eyes were covered with a blindfold. Kong Ping's voice then spoke up. Press the button on the phone under your thumb. This way you can find relief. The man gritted his teeth, his heart boiling with rage. And less than 100 meters ahead of him, a massive eye was slowly opening, staring directly at the man. The next moment, the man pressed the button on his hand. Isn't this the website containing the judgment rules of the Higanbana girl? Immediately after, the Hell Correspondence connection was successful. The man fell to the ground. Kong Ping stared straight at the screen in front of him. The figure of the Higanbana girl appeared right in the young man's monitoring room. A muffled call sounded from behind him. Ai-chan turned her head and glanced over. She realized that the young man hadn't been drawn into her illusion. Instead, she found herself trapped inside a transparent glass cover. And it was at this very moment of turning around. A touch of gray silently crept over the Higanbana girl's form. She was caught in the divine rules, and in the next moment, her body shattered and gradually dissipated. The surveillance monitor screen turned completely to static. Kong Ping slowly stood up, and a voice echoed in his ears. The power of the god will grow stronger once again. Before this, Kong Ping had learned through the world megaphone that the god could deal with the Higanbana girl. And indeed he has now accomplished it. Yet Kong Ping's heart was far from calm. As an anomaly itself, after devouring the Higanbana girl, to what extent will God evolve? This is something he dares not imagine. Perhaps in the near future, because of their actions today, the apocalypse will truly arrive. I thought I had everything under control. In the end, I lost too much. What we have been searching for is what we already possess from the start. We always look around yet miss what we truly desire. This is why we often struggle to achieve our desires. I have repeatedly analyzed the weaknesses of human nature, and perhaps it's the pursuit of perfection in everything that causes us to overlook what we cherish most in the present. Since the Department of Special Affairs has chosen to declare war, they caused the death of the Higanbana girl. Then I'll make them understand. Higanbana girl cannot be killed, accompanied by the deduction of legend points. The silhouette of Higanbana girl gradually emerges from the notes, and this time, the rules of anomalies will spread across the entire world. A girl slowly materializes, her entire form enveloped in attire woven from the power of rules. Amidst little eyes' astonished expression, the barefoot girl holding the Higanbana stepped out once more, this time with a touch more maturity. Higanbana girl has successfully evolved, and her skills have been enhanced. Moto Shinji looked at the girl with satisfaction, feeling that spending over 100,000 legend points was well worth it. The next moment, the Hell Correspondence link was restored, covering the entire city. She plucked the petals, saying, "Let me erase your resentment. Perpetrators deserve to be punished." The death toll suddenly surged and AI-chan's workload increased exponentially. Where the Higanbana descends, the night sky is also tinged with redemption. In just a few minutes, Moto Shinji's legendary points have already surpassed 1 million. While Kong Ping, who thought he had dealt with the Higanbana girl, he was also startled by the blood-red moon. How could this be? Hadn't she already been devoured by the god? Immediately summon the highest think tank of the Department of Special Affairs and activate the first level alert. You said the plan failed and Higanbana girl has been revived. That's impossible. I just received a notification that the Hell Correspondence link has spread nationwide. The death toll is still surging, and the situation is now beyond our control. The current solution we can think of is to use the forced answer headset to communicate with the Higanbana girl and get her to answer questions. But the very next second, the team members objected. What if Higanbana girl has already formed an alliance with other anomalies? Everyone present realized the crux of the issue. Even before they decided to confront Higanbana girl, the two sides were already in a hostile relationship. So I suggest we can use the god to kill Higanbana girl again. If Higanbana girl continues to expand her killing range, then let her extend it to the entire world. This way the pressure on us will lessen and naturally someone will deal with her. Elder Go is right. All of humanity is dealing with anomalies. Even if we go too far, at most we'll only face criticism. This makes me sigh with emotion. It seems ingrained in the Japanese marrow to never change their suicidal tendencies. Just like a dog can't stop eating filth. Such escalation of conflict is no less than roasting all of humanity over a fire. However, Kong Ping stated solemnly, I do not agree with Elder Go's proposal. If we attract imitation from other organizations, humanity will collapse without a fight. That would be a true disaster. And let us not forget, esteemed representatives of the industry, but you lack the ability to confront anomalies directly. You are under the protection of the Department of Special Affairs, which listens to your opinions solely out of impartiality. If Mr. Go is extremely dissatisfied, he can withdraw from the think tank of the Department of Special Affairs. These words also left him grinding his teeth in frustration, yet powerless to do anything. And about a few minutes later, a figure appeared here. Red Melody snapped angrily, "What do you old men want from me?" She said this while slowly shuffling forward. "We specifically called you here to assign you a task, and this task is quite special. It can only be done by someone with the ability to substitute death. For the next few days, you'll stay in the department. I'll have someone teach you how to freely use resentful emotion." And when Red Melody heard resentful emotion, her face instantly changed. "You don't mean Higanbana girl? Wasn't she supposed to be dealt with by you guys? Even Higanbana girl, who holds the privilege of life and death, she too cannot escape the relentless exploitation of unscrupulous bosses. I say, Ai-chan, even as the proxy of Yellow Springs, why do you still look so listless and dispirited? Boss, handling nationwide operations is exhausting. I'm completely worn out. Please approve my paid leave already, hey. Even as a sentient anomaly with clones handling the business, I still get exhausted, you know? If you keep exploiting employees like this, who knows, you might just bring about your own downfall someday." Ahem, haha, my apologies, I didn't think it through properly. However, taking a vacation is out of the question. The threat from our neighbors hasn't been eliminated yet. Let's continue to discreetly investigate this neighbor. In the next moment, the rule skill is activated. This guy has gone upstairs to borrow something. Under the all-seeing eye, the scene of the upstairs residents arguing comes into view. One is a cartoonist named Zhongyi, who previously refused to lend items to Xiaosong and might have bypassed Xiaosong's rules. The other is called Stone, a kind-hearted pushover. And just as Moto Shinji was speculating about the other party's anomalies rules, a ding-dong sound reached his ears. Mr. Zhong, your takeout is here. Please come out and get it. Oh no, the delivery person had pressed the wrong floor. He had rung Xiaosong's doorbell. And at that moment the elevator door descended. Meanwhile, Xiaosong, who had borrowed a pot from upstairs, was about to appear on the 18th floor. Unaware of this, the delivery guy was still trying to push the door open to check the situation, just as the sound of the elevator arriving at this floor echoed. Moto Shinji hurriedly pushed the door open and yelled, "You've got the wrong floor. The person you're delivering to is upstairs." This shout also stopped the delivery guy who was about to push the door open. He looked down at the order in confusion. Turns out it was really delivered to the wrong place. Thank you. You should leave quickly. The people in this household have some issues. But before he could finish, he suddenly realized. At that moment, Xiaosong had already appeared behind the other person. The young man was also startled by this scene. So it's Mr. Xiaosong who's back. You really are quite busy, aren't you? Not at all, not at all. Have I disturbed you? I'm truly sorry. Moto Shinji pushed the delivery guy away and said, "You'd better leave quickly." Then he straightened his back and continued, "Can I go to your place to take a look?" The other person showed an awkward, sinister smile and said, "Of course you can." Then he gestured toward the slightly ajar door and said, "Please come in." With the notebook by his side, Moto Shinji naturally had no fear of dying again. He was even a bit puzzled by his inexplicable death last time. He hadn't expected it to be so easy to get in this time without dying immediately. This suggested that there might be new possibilities within the opponent's rules. As long as they agreed, immediate death could be avoided. It was worth a try. So Moto Shinji cautiously turned around and asked, "Mr. Xiaosong?" That sleazy, cold face replied, "Please go ahead. I happen to be short of some gift packaging bags. Could you lend me one?" "Oh, so you want to borrow a gift bag?" Moto Shinji tentatively reached out to take it. "Yes, may I borrow it?" The other person just tilted their head coldly and stared. Moto Shinji naturally didn't reach for it directly, instead staring back at the other person with equal wariness. Indeed, before he explicitly agreed to let me do something, everything here could kill me in an instant. So I decisively withdrew my right hand. It's inconvenient, isn't it? No problem. If you don't agree, I won't take your things casually. But at that moment the other person immediately handed over the item saying, No, of course you can have it. Please take it." So he tossed it over with a clatter, and there was actually something inside. Was it something that hadn't been given away? "Sorry, I need to return Mr. Stone's pot." Did he give the order to leave? If I don't go, will I be forced to die again? Well, thank you. I'll take my leave now. An unharmonious voice sounded again. Please wait a moment. There are some delicious local specialties inside. Would you like to have a taste? This specialty is absolutely delicious. Especially the texture when you take a bite. Crispy and crunchy with a chicken flavor too. This guy is actually asking me to try the local specialty. Whether I agree or refuse, the outcome seems to be the same. How about trying to agree with him? Maybe we'll discover a new rule. So Moto Shinji also scooped up a piece. He put it to his mouth and took a bite. The next moment, a wave of nausea surged through him. This is fucking not a cookie. It's a human finger. Meanwhile, the Department of Special Affairs summoned Akiji and Red Melody. Akiji then said, "Chief, I have no objections. Red Melody, with her ability to use shadows as substitutes, is indeed the best candidate to deal with the Higginbana girl. However, we recently discovered a special overseer whose spiritual pressure and spiritual power exceed those of ordinary overseers. Most importantly, his unique ability is resurrection." Kong Ping exclaimed in surprise. "What's his name?" "His name is Moto Shinji and he is a student."